You're listening to the Crochet Conversations podcast with Inez and Mell, and this is episode 44. Do this with your yarn scraps. Hello, welcome back to another episode. What a crazy week it's been.
Yes, hi everybody.
Happy April Fools.
Sunday. Oh yes, yeah.
I mean, that's 2 days ago, but happy April Fools anyway. It's been a crazy week for us, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Before we get into this episode, I want to say thank you. Like a serious big thank you to everybody that showed up on our Instagram live that happened this Friday.
Yeah, we had our first yarn live sale.
Yeah,
So-
it was like a yarn de-stashing kind of live sale on Instagram, and we were initially pretty nervous because we didn't know how many people would turn up, whether, the people who did turn up would be engaging or not, but it seemed like everyone kind of really enjoyed themselves.
Yeah.
And the Instagram live went on for like the full freaking
4 hours.
4 hours. That was insane.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for showing up, and I know a lot of the people who showed up came from the podcast.
Yeah.
We have people from the US, we had someone from Germany, someone else from Czech Republic, some of them are Singaporeans living overseas.
Oh yes.
Hello everybody.
Hi guys. Thanks really for, coming down and joining us. It was really fun.
Yeah, you guys turned the conversation from like bugs.
Yeah, bugs.
We started talking about bugs and it went as far as like poisoning people with yarn and like
Yeah, it was
Harry
crazy.
Potter.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of requests to do more lives because it was the energy was like chaotic, but in a good way.
Yeah, I think I was happy to hear somebody reply and say that was one of the most fun Friday night that they have had. Yeah.
In a while. I mean, we are so lucky to kind of live in a day and age where we even have things like Instagram Live.
Yeah.
Because when we were growing up, and we are old enough, like Mel and I are old enough to be able to have had experienced the first pandemic, which is the SARS pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was horrible because you had no internet the way the internet is today.
Yeah.
No Instagram, not really any social media, definitely no Instagram Live.
Yeah.
But now, we're so lucky that it's sort of advanced in this way that we can connect with you guys.
Yeah, and it's nice to have real actual conversations with you guys, that it's kind of like two-way, and we can put a face to some of you guys.
Like a character, like
Yeah.
we can like see your characters, not really a face, but like your personality.
Yeah.
We can sort of see it. In Mel and I was saying that it kind of feels like we were doing like events again. Because sometimes we have like art market events where we set up a booth and we know people get to come down and talk to us. And for the past 2 years, we haven't really had that. But now, with this Instagram Live, we can like finally, interact with you guys again. And really, a lot of you are the reason why I keep doing what I'm doing, because you keep like spurring me on with good ideas and stuff. So
Yeah.
we owe a lot to you guys. So anyway, that was a long ramble. So this episode, what to do with your yarn scraps. Now, this was the episode that I was going to originally do or cover. Instead, like We Are Knitters decided to mess up my flow for
Your
me.
flow,
So
yeah.
it's been 2 whole weeks since I can't get to this episode, but I've been really wanting to. If you listen to our previous episode, you know that I said it was such a good coincidence that this happened, because this episode just feels like a really good follow-up after We Are Knitters,
Right.
because it was such a big talk about sustainability and stuff like that. So this episode is all about the different options you can use or do with your yarn scraps other than just throwing it away.
Yeah, so kind of like recycling it.
And like upcycling it.
Right.
Because a lot of the times, especially in my classes, like some of my students who take my crochet classes, they would have like 2 or 3 meters left in their ball of yarn, and then they just throw it away. So then I tell them, oh no, keep it, don't throw it away, like keep it with you, like put it somewhere. And then they go, why would I want to keep trash?
Right,
because
yeah.
I guess it's the idea that you're done with it and there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, and you can't really use that to add on to your existing project, right?
Yeah, you can't like crochet with it anymore. I mean, sometimes they use it to like weave in the ends or combine 2 pieces of panels, but that is part of the work.
Yeah.
Once that is all done, they just throw that yarn away, which is such a waste. So in this episode, I'm going to break down a bunch of options for you guys, what you can do with your yarn scraps. And I have, let me flip my page so you can hear, okay? okay, I've got that many pages.
Wow. I mean, off my head, I can probably think of like just a couple, but you have quite a number, right?
I have 14 plus one bonus.
Plus one bonus.
Well, it's kind of like point 1, point 2, and then one of the points has a 3 and a 3A.
Right, okay, of course.
Because it's kind of like a subcategory of that, but not enough to be a whole option of its
Right.
own. So it's like I have 14 plus an A.
Plus A.
14 plus A. Oh no, what's going
What's
on?
going on?
We live, okay, that's just the issues with living in the city, right? So like if any of you have been to Singapore or know about how Singapore is like, we're basically one major city.
Yeah.
We don't really have suburbs, you know. The whole country is like crowded and what's the word I'm looking for? Like congested. Not congested. It's like packed with humans everywhere.
Overpopulated.
There's like highways cutting through every
Yeah.
housing estate. So, you know, we live right beside one of the major highways.
Highways, yeah.
So we always hear like sirens or like motorcycle
Or like cars,
racing.
yeah.
So okay, so let's jump right into the very first option. Option 1. I have 14, so I'm just gonna go through them, and I've sort of sectioned them out into like similar categories.
Wow, okay.
So I'm really prepared for this
Well,
episode.
you had a lot of time to prepare for this episode as
I
well.
had 2 full weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks at this point already. Okay, anyway. Option 1, which is the most basic and straightforward, which is just to recycle them. And what I mean by recycle them is to save them and find some fabric recycling places.
Oh, okay, right.
The problem with this is that I feel like fabric recycling places are not easy to find. And also not everyone knows how to recycle properly. Because even when you're talking about regular recycling, you know, there are certain rules that you need to follow when it comes to recycling properly. You know, paper or like bottles the paper needs to be peeled off. You know, like orange juice bottles, and like the caps have to be separated because they're different plastics, and
Yeah.
not all plastics are the same plastic.
Yeah.
And you kind of need to know them, and different kind of cardboard also needs to be separated properly. So when it comes to yarn, I find that there isn't really a category in which yarn can sit in nicely.
Right, right.
There's
Not the
paper.
usual categories, yeah.
Yeah, there's electronic waste, which is more popular to find, where it's only electronics. Then there's like paper, plastics, general waste. But where does fabric sit in that?
Yeah.
Unless it's a factory that independently collects scrap fabric to, you know, work with something, it's not easy to find. Like, in fact, I don't even think in Singapore I know of any.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we don't have, but actually I'm not sure. So I don't know of any in Singapore that can do that. And some of you also know that I bead, like I do like bead weaving. After every project or so, the needles have to be thrown away because they're blunt. It doesn't work well with your bead weaving. Your you know, it's not so sharp. It's not so easy to use it. But you can't just throw away needles. So I have like an aluminium case where I put all my needles in it, and I intend to recycle the whole bunch of metal thingy, but I just don't know where to do it.
Yeah.
So I've just been holding on to it for years now, and it's the same with my yarn. So even though the most straightforward option would be to recycle it, I just think that there's so many like rules around it that makes it very difficult. And if you can't do it right, I'd rather you find other options, because, you know, recycling, it doesn't reduce carbon emissions.
Yeah.
It just reduces the amount of resources you need. But then again, to break it down and start from scratch and make it into something else and repackage it, it's I don't know whether the true cost of it really offsets
Yeah, yeah.
the value of recycling.
Probably better options, yeah.
Unless you're taking it and turning it into something that's really essential, like building materials for buildings or whatnot.
Yeah.
If you're just going to return it back into yarn for other people to use, and it's just a vicious cycle that generates endless amounts of carbon emissions, then I would steer clear of recycling it. So option 2 is something that I would like to try. It's not something I've done personally before, but it's something that I definitely want to try, and that is to compost your yarn.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
So, okay, Mell doesn't know anything that's on my list. So this is a surprise for her as well. So she's discovering what's on my list as well, because I told her, don't
Peek.
yeah, don't discuss this. Let's not discuss this. I
Yeah.
really want to, you know, like surprise you on the podcast. So funny way of surprising. But Option 2 is to compost your yarn.
Wow, okay. I would have never thought about that.
But, and there's a very huge but, okay? It can only be a natural fiber yarn.
Right, of course.
So anything that's like along the lines of silk or milk cotton, regular cotton, 100% wool, you know, merino wool, alpaca wool, whatever, as long as it's a natural based yarn. No acrylics, no polyester, none of that, because if you compost that, it will break down, but all you're doing is putting microplastics into the ground, which you don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, so, and if you're unsure of it, don't compost it at all. And composting can take a long time, but I feel like it's a better option. The only reason why we haven't done it before is because we live in an apartment building and we don't have like a shared ground or garden with a common composting bin, because I think our council, like the town council for our area, is kind of worried, or like this, I think this goes across the board with all of Singapore. They're kind of worried that people don't know how to compost properly.
Yeah, you don't want people being irresponsible about, you know, what they put in the bin.
Yeah, because apart from food scraps, you know, you can put in like hair or any regular cotton, say fabric. It has to be pure cotton, you know. It's not just food scraps, but I think if you start telling the general population that they're just gonna dump all their waste into it, and then it's gonna be a real nightmare, because that's not what composting is. There are some options where, you know, lately on my Instagram feed, I've been seeing a lot of like advertisements for composting bins.
Okay, like small ones, or
yeah, it looks like a dustbin, like a regular dustbin or like a trash bin, but it's like a composting thing. So you throw your scraps in it, you cover the lid, it's completely airtight. It shines like a blue UV light to kill the germs. It gets rid of odor. And like within 48 hours, it breaks it down into soil.
Wow, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I've been wanting one because I've been seeing it everywhere, and I really, really want to compost.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm vegan, Mel is not, but as a vegan, I eat a lot of like veggies that require like skinning, so like potatoes or like carrots, or like sometimes I skin my celery, or like banana peel, or like fruit peels.
I know what you mean, yeah. And all those kind of go to waste, right?
Yeah, or like eggshells, you know, like sometimes we use eggs in the house. And well, that's not vegan, you know, but I'm not a strict vegan, so let's not go into that. But all these things, I always look at them and feel that it's such a waste. You know, like coffee grounds.
Yeah, coffee grounds.
You drink so much coffee, you know, and we already subscribe to Nespresso's coffee subscription, where we're very diligent about returning our capsules to them.
Yeah. So
that they can find a way to recycle it. But on our own, you know, I kind of want to recycle, and then all my cotton yarn can be recycled.
Can go into that,
you know? So you can compost your yarn. You just have to be very, very clear what the fiber content in your yarn is. If there's even a chance you're not sure if it's like a cotton acrylic blend, don't put it in.
Yeah.
So that's option 2, okay? Option 3 now, moving forward, is something that I do personally, and it's okay, let's get into it. What I do is I put all my yarn scraps in one huge jar. Mm-hmm. But currently, it's like a huge, like 1 meter tall. Would you say my jar is 1 meter tall?
Taller than that, I would think.
Like 1.2 meters tall. It's really, really huge. It comes past my waist. You know, it's humongous. And I put all my yarn scraps in it. And the original idea was to make some sort of home decor in it. But, you know, I don't separate out the colors or anything. And now it's starting to look like a hot mess. So I haven't done anything with it. But to expand on that idea, you can use it as home decor, is to get a few different types of like glass jars, and when you're done with your projects, like color coordinate them. So like maybe one jar is like the warm tones, or the reds and the oranges go in one, and then maybe all the blues or the greens or the whites or the blacks. And can you imagine like all sitting in a row on the windowsill?
That would be nice.
That would be so cute, right? And obviously have a jar with the lid so it doesn't collect dust and whatever. And so this is what brought me to point 3, option 3A.
3A, right.
Right? Is that keep all your yarn scraps there. You never know. I promise you're gonna be doing something around the house and need a piece of string one day, and you're gonna find it in that jar.
Yeah.
So for example, we use them for gardening.
Yes.
Right, so we don't have a garden because, like I said, we live in an apartment building, but we do have an area, like a landing outside our front door, that we have like 4 or 5 potted plants, and some of them are really huge, and we use, you know, yarn scraps to sort of tie obviously we try to use like the 100% cotton ones. We use those yarn scraps to tie the little like bunches together so it doesn't fall over.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. Or if we need to attach a label to the pot, you know, to say, oh, this is curry plant, or we have a bougainvillea plant, or what else? We have an avocado plant.
Yeah.
So we do that. And another option for things around the house is you can, you know, slip stitch or single crochet around your regular hangers. And it makes your hangers anti-slip hangers, right? Rather than buy the expensive felted ones from like wherever, you know, you can make your own anti-slip ones, and that's what I do. So a lot of my hangers, especially the ones I get from IKEA, they all have like little yarn color coordinating, like yarn like single crochet around the like the shoulder portion.
Yeah, it's
of the
funny.
hangers.
Yeah, because I'm so used to seeing them there that it doesn't. I don't register that that's
It's
what
yarn,
I'm using yarn scraps for.
Exactly. So I use it to sort of hang all my like spaghetti tops where
Yeah.
the straps don't sit right. So having the yarn there sort of prevents it from falling, you know, and it's like, it's beautiful. You can like decorate anything with it. Like I said, I promise, okay, you're gonna go around your house one day and think, I need something for this, you
Yeah,
know,
if
like,
only I have like some string or something.
yeah, or you can like tie them around a curtain as like a curtain tie or whatever, you know, wrap it around a few times, and then you can constantly change it out. But you know, this idea, option 3, is like a purely home decor one.
Yeah, I just thought of one. We use our scrap yarns to wrap gifts.
Yeah, actually, that's my point number 11, is to use a scrap yarn as like ribbons for like Christmas gifts or birthday gifts, or like just basically you always need string around the house. Or you
Yes,
could
yeah.
tie them around a flower vase, and like, because I have a flower vase on my dining table, and you could tie that and decorate
Yeah, as
that.
decoration. Yeah.
Yeah, and so actually Mel skipped ahead to point 11.
Sorry.
But you see, it's amazing.
Yeah, there's so many things that you can use now. They come like, you know, you think about it.
Yeah, so this is only point 3 and 3A. Okay, so let's move on to option 4. Okay, and that would be to keep all of your yarn scraps and tie them together to make one hell of a long string, like a huge, humongous mishmash ball.
Right.
And I know like this is quite a common thing I see in the crochet industry or the knitting industry. They would just tie, you know, like they tie all the ends together and make one really, 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 really long piece of yarn, and then they just wrap it in a ball, and they keep that ball around, and every time they're done with something, they would just add it on.
Right.
And they would keep adding and adding and adding until it's big enough, or there's enough yardage or enough weight for you to do something like a household thing, so maybe like a floor mat. So the most common thing I see people use with this is a floor mat,
Okay.
because honestly you're not going to make any clothes with it, right? And tie it, you know, in a way that you don't mind the tails sticking out, and so when you're done you don't have to weave in any tail at
Yeah,
all.
it's like part of the pattern, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it looks quite cute. Like I have seen some pictures on Pinterest where it looks freaking cute. So, you know, similar to the jar option in option 3 that I talked about, where you color coordinate them. So some people do like a warm tone ball and a cool tone, and then when they crochet that floor mat up, and it's got like mishmash of different materials, different yarn weights, different thickness of yarn, and you don't just ignore them all and just use it as one long strand. And like that would be so cute, and I would totally do it if the tails wouldn't annoy me.
Yeah.
Because I think the tails would really, really annoy me. So for that reason, I haven't done that for myself.
So for this, you don't care what material it is, how thick the yarn is. You just
You
put
don't.
it all together. You
Yes.
don't actually care. Oh,
So
okay.
you could work on something that's like a fine spot weight, and then tie it to the ball, and immediately your next project's like a chunky, like
Wow.
roving, and then you could tie it, maybe not roving, but like a DK or super bulky.
Okay.
You could just combine them.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about this, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and because it's so random, you don't really know how the project's gonna turn out.
Yeah.
And I think this is really good if you know, like I know that I have some listeners to the podcast who are new to my crochet classes, and this is something that I've been telling them already, so you know, they were just gonna hear it twice here, because I think it's a good idea to start that from scratch. And then you can look back over time and see, oh, I used this yarn for something.
Yeah, yeah. I remember this was for my cardigan, or like this was for my granny square, and I only have that 2 project, but yeah.
But see, you could combine it to mine, right?
Yeah,
if I had something like that. And I think it's kind of cute. And I saw once on Instagram, I don't remember who it was anymore, that she had a huge ball, like bigger than the size of her head. And she's like, it's finally at the size that I want. You know, I intend to make like a carpet for my studio.
Wow.
You know, and she tied it such that the tails are only like an inch long.
Okay.
So after, when she's done and all the tails are sticking out, she just went in with the scissors and trimmed it off so that it's a little bit more even looking.
Okay.
I love the look. I really love it. But I think if I step on it, the tail's gonna irritate my toes. So that's option number 4. Option 5 is also something that is pretty common, I think, but I feel that it's just good to include it in this list, and that is to chop it up into really, really small like pieces and use it for stuffing in your amigurumi.
Yeah.
That is if you amigurumi, because I don't do that at all. I don't amigurumi at all, so it's not really an option for me. Therefore, I never really ever chop it up into fluff. But I do have a pumpkin that I did for Halloween once, and I stuffed it with my old stuffing.
Yeah.
Right, the yarn, the scrap bits of yarn, and I stuck a cinnamon stick in the middle to make that little stalk. And I still have it. It's really, really pretty.
Really cute.
Sitting on my shelf, yeah. So that's another option you can do. This is the most straightforward option, and it works well. It works just as well as regular batting, you know.
Yeah.
Or if you don't like the way it feels because it's maybe too dense, you could combine it with batting. Or combine it with like cotton stuffing, not batting, but like cotton stuffing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Or you could just donate them to somebody that needs it for amigurumi.
Yeah, that's smart, yeah.
You know, like put it on your Instagram or whatever, you know, like give one back to whoever wants. They just pay shipping and then they have it because, you know, I think I might start doing something like that.
Yeah, rather than throwing it away, yeah.
I have a ton, like really I have a ton.
Yeah.
So that's option 5. And it's kind of similar to option 6 where you put it, you know, you give it for something else, and that is to tie into one huge knot, leave all the tails sticking out, and use it as a cat toy.
That's smart. I mean,
Right.
I've seen people who create like pet toys, and I was
Yeah.
just thinking like probably have to make like a small amigurumi kind of thing,
But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, right.
You could just put like a strand of it. If you have even like 30 centimeters, so that's like what, for 5-6 inches. If you have 5-6 inches of yarn, you can stack them all together until it's like really huge and tie a big knot in the middle.
that's so smart.
Right? Leave the ends sticking out and then just throw it on the ground, you know. Or maybe you can just knot a bunch of yarn together. Make sure that it's not going to come apart,
Yeah.
so that your pet or your cat doesn't try to eat and swallow it. But then just throw it on the ground and, you know, let the
Yeah,
cat.
no more like buying cat or pet toys already.
We don't ever
Yeah,
buy cat
yeah,
toys
we don't.
or dog toys. We have a cat and a dog, right? We don't ever buy them toys anymore because all we want to do is play with scrap yarn. And in fact, Mel's cousin came over recently, and she kind of looked at my jar and said, "Do you mind if I like kind of grab a handful for my cat?" So we said, "Please grab like 10 handfuls." So that's another option that you can use too, which is to use them as cat toys, because I think really it's ingenious. You know, you save so much money on pet toys,
Yeah.
just with the yarn scraps, you know, and you could even color coordinate them. I'm all about the color coordination.
And the thing is that sometimes I think they have more fun with the scrap
Yeah,
yarn than the
yep.
actual cat toys.
Because it's like they're not supposed to be playing with it, right? Because it's yarn, it belongs to you. So,
Yeah.
or at least in my household, the cat and the dog are not allowed in the studio unless somebody is present. We have recently banned the cat entirely from the studio because I'm so terrified that her fur will get everywhere and like
Yeah.
get into my yarn. And if it's for myself, I don't mind. But if it's for a customer, it's not that nice to have cat
Yeah,
cat
for sure.
hairs sticking out, and she's a white cat. And if I work with any dark colors, oh my goodness. So anyway, that's option, what is
6.
it? Option 6. Okay. So moving on to option 7, this is something that I am kind of doing myself also, and that is to try your hand at freeform crochet.
Ah, right. Yep.
Okay, because there are no rules. You could put like different yarn weights beside each other. You could do whatever you want. If you have a longer strand, make a bigger portion. If you have a shorter strand, do
Do like a tiny bit.
a tiny bit. You know, if you have a really, really, really short one, You could just, string it through, tie a knot, and make it like a fluff or something. And God knows,
okay, yeah.
But I am currently working on a free-form blanket. I mean, right now it's the size of like a table mat, but I intend to have it grow as big as a blanket.
And it's really coming along nicely, surprisingly.
Right? It's such a small piece right now, but it just looks pretty. I guess maybe it's like the randomness of it.
Yeah.
I have like some pink, some blue, some white, some grays, and then suddenly there's like a huge red section.
And there's like a portion where there was yellow. Remember?
A yellow portion, then the variegated portion, and a color changing one. So, the fact that I don't have to think too much about it and have it like a yarn scrap blanket free-form thingy, I've just been really enjoying it. In fact, I was working on it like last night, and my arm was aching like crazy because I have not crocheted with such fervor in a long time.
Yeah, you're really going head on into it. Yeah,
I really was, but I'm really excited to have this be done, although I know that it will take a while. So I actually tasked Mell with the difficult task of going through my jar that I talked about.
Yeah, 1.2, 1.5 meters maybe.
Maybe 1.2, yeah, 1.4 meters. So I tasked her with going through it, taking out. I'm really sorry I did that. Looking back, it's like, you had fun, didn't you?
Okay, it was pretty fun, yeah.
So I wanted her to pull out the longer portions of yarn, like the slightly, the ones that's like maybe 5 grams left, and I added that to the blanket.
Yeah.
It's a really small blanket as of now. I find it hard to call it a blanket, but it's going to be like a free-form kind of blanket when it's done. So that's option, 7? It's something you could totally do as well. And it's a good way for you to experiment with different things. So if you want to experiment with a different crochet hook, if you want to, say for example, if you are very familiar with holding it in the knife hold, the knife hold, and you want to change to the pen hold of holding your crochet hook, and you don't want to experiment or try it on a current piece of project that might ruin your attention,
right,
do it in this freeform thing.
Kind of swatch it on the blanket.
Exactly, swatch it on the blanket. And if it's a big enough portion, if you remember what crochet hook size you're using, that could totally be a swatch also.
Yeah.
I only have one rule for myself in my freeform crochet blanket, which is I will only use one size of crochet hook, which is the 3.75 millimeter tulip crochet hook.
Right, regardless of the size or what type of yarn. Yeah, okay.
That's right. Regardless of whatever size yarn I'm using. So if it's a really thick yarn, I might reconsider if I want to use it or not. But anything that's like a bulky weight downwards, I'm just gonna add it on and use one crochet hook.
Okay.
Because I think it's easier to give it a more uniform look if you have one sort of variable that stays the same. So for me in this case, it's my crochet hook size. For you, it could be the same yarn weight. Different people crochets differently. There are some people who only work with a certain yarn weight.
Yeah.
And only work with a certain, type of yarn. So if that's your style, then it's pretty easy for you. You can use whatever crochet hook size you want as long as you keep within the same fiber content. That's up to you to decide, So for me, I've decided it's the same crochet hook. So no matter what I do, at least the finished product would have that, that similar strand or like the similar vein, that similar look of going through the whole piece. So that's option 7.
Yeah, I like that. I think the point is just really get creative with it, right?
Exactly. If you want to try a particular yarn, and you only have a little bit, you want to keep it, remember it, you don't want to throw it away.
Yeah.
Come on, a free-form crochet blanket is so cute because you have a little bit of everything in one blanket.
And I'm motivated to continue digging through that jar because I'm excited to see how this blanket will turn out.
And I think there's more, right? There's more in that jar.
I think only been through half, I think, so far.
Yeah.
I'm still digging through it.
And if you're wondering how the laundry for it would be like, if you're thinking, if you're wondering how difficult it would be to wash it with all the different fiber content, you could just like dry clean it,
Right.
I know of other people, I've seen like someone who made like granny squares, like hexagons, and they put it together in an art piece on a wall and framed it up. So that's also an option for you.
Okay, yeah.
So if you don't want to use it as an actual blanket, if it's big enough and if it's the right size enough, you could hang it up on the wall like a tapestry piece.
That's smart.
You know, like there's a trend, like in the home decor trend, where you put a piece of tapestry behind your bed and that serves as the headboard.
Okay.
And this could totally be like a freeform crochet headboard tapestry piece that you hang on the wall. You know, if it's nice enough, if you've chosen your colors well enough, because, you know, even though it's freeform, it doesn't mean there are no rules. You still have to create boundaries for yourself within what you want to create in that freeform. So if the work is done and you like the way it looks enough to hang it up, then you could totally hang it up or frame it up and have it like a masterpiece, like abstract art.
Yeah, maybe you should try that.
I would love to. If I am impatient, if my blanket doesn't grow, if it stays the size of like a painting, I might actually do that, you know.
Yeah,
Stretch
actually,
it
why
over,
not? Yeah.
stretch it over canvas and make it look like an actual canvas thing.
That would be nice, I think. I think so far I'm liking the look of it, so yeah, it could happen, yeah?
Right. I'm imagining in my head now behind like the dining area.
Yeah, but let's try to work on the blanket first.
You never know, you know, if I do it nice enough, if I can stretch it over a wooden frame like the way you stretch canvas.
Yeah.
We could sell it as like a zero waste thing, because it really is a zero waste thing.
You know what? Let's work on that.
Oh my god, that's so cute. Oh my god, stinking cute. Okay, that's option 7. Okay, so let's move on. Moving on to option 8, and this is also something that I do personally. Because a lot of you know that my background is in art and I paint, right? So I paint abstract art pieces, contemporary abstract. And so a lot of the way my mind frames things is in the form of an art painting.
Okay.
So I like to steer in that direction. So option 8 would be to buy yourself like a weaving loom and weave in all your little ends in there. Because this would work for really, really, really short pieces as well.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, how long do you actually need?
As long as it spans like across your weaving loom, that could work. And you know, we on our website, we have that little tab where it's like zero waste options, so people can buy things on our website that is made with no waste at all. It's like a recycling, like a zero waste project that we're working on. And in fact, I have created many pieces around the house that we still use today, where it's woven with like scrap yarn. So the longer pieces of yarn, I do that to make the actual weaved, and the weft would just be, you know, your own scrap yarn or whatever. And if it's a smaller piece and I want to, you know, build it up, so I just build it up however I look at it. It's kind of like free form, but you have a little bit more control over how you want to position it.
Right.
Or, you know, give it to somebody else who weaves.
Yeah, that would be something that I want to try. Maybe you can teach me.
No.
Show me.
I have been telling you to do it with me for a long time. I have a jar, like a jar of potential scraps. So currently, I have a weaving loom.
Yeah.
It's a medium-sized one, not too big, but big enough. Okay, it's nice enough. And I have been collecting all my darker tones. So all my white, grays, or not darker, like neutral. Okay, grays, blacks,
cream color,
light grey, dark grey, whatever in that family. So it's like a monochromatic black and white kind of family. And it's been sitting in the corner for the longest time. And I've been telling Mel, she's like looking everywhere but me right now. You know, and I've been telling her to try doing it with me.
Yeah.
I
mean, when I have time, right? I'm so busy crocheting other things.
I have all of you guys on our podcast and it's thousands of you guys, okay? I have all of you guys as proof that Mel has said she would do it.
That I would try.
Okay, you know what else you can try? That brings me to point number 9, actually.
Okay.
Do you guys know that Mel cross stitches?
Did we mention that before?
Did you mention it in your birthday episode?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay, fun fact about Mel. She does cross stitch. And
well, I used to do a lot more.
You did recently. Recently, just this past Christmas, Mel did like a Hogwarts castle.
The castle one, yeah.
Which she hasn't yet done the clouds or the sky or whatever, because it's all white, and to her it's like boring.
Yeah, I feel like the moment I'm done with the castle, I'm done. Finish.
So point number 9 is that you could take shorter pieces, you know, even shorter than the weaving, right? So if you have really short pieces, you could pull apart the different plies and use them in cross stitch.
Ah.
Because for the DMC thread in cross stitch, right, you actually have to pull apart certain strands every now and then, depending on what the pattern calls for. So you could use that, especially if you have really nice yarn. If you have like a bamboo cotton or like a rayon or like some sort of
or probably those that it's easy to sort of split apart, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, all yarn would be easy too, but if you have something nicer, you could totally use it. And you have if you have like an acrylic furry green, you could use it for the grass or something, like who knows, something, right? Yeah. But cross stitch is an option, and I've talked about a freeform, weaving, and cross stitch now in the past, say option 7, option 8, option 9, and all of these are perfect examples if you have really, really short pieces of yarn. Like if you can't even make 5 double crochets with them, they would be perfect for like cross stitching.
Yeah, actually,
or weaving. And it's such a good option, which is why I think a lot of places, a lot of shops, when they open, say like a yarn store, they cater to all sorts of fiber arts. Yeah. So right now we're really talking about interdisciplinary art and cross-disciplinary. Yeah. Where you don't just do one form of art alone, and you do, the skills are transferable. Like if you know how to work with yarn, you kind of know how yarn behaves. Right, so you know whether certain yarn would weave well, or maybe certain yarn would split well. Yeah. And if it splits well, it could be applied to, say, cross-stitching. If it doesn't, you could apply it to weaving. And, I could go on forever because I'm super passionate about this, because my degree is sort of in merging different art forms together across, interdisciplinary art.
Yeah, and I think it's nice that you kind of dabble a little bit in like everything, sort of. So you are aware and you have like sort of that knowledge on how to use and like you say up recycle all these things.
Upcycle. And I stand by this motto that jack of all trades, master of none. But I like the second half that people forget, which is jack of all trades, master of none, oftentimes better than the master of one. So it's like, when people say, oh, you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none, then I would say, oh, but it's oftentimes better than a master of one. And I think it's really important to know a little bit of everything. Yeah. Because everything is connected somehow. You can't just specialize in one thing and not have a base of something else, like a dentist, right? Even though they specialize in it, they all have medical background, they all have medical training. Yeah. They all learn the same base of it. And so to me, knowing how to work with all these different art forms, cross-stitching, weaving, knitting, crochet, or whatever, is sort of like learning the basics of it. Like you can't satisfactorily say, crochet works best for me if you've not tried everything else.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm very preachy about this.
No, but I do think it's important, especially if we are within that industry, to have that knowledge,
Yeah, and like you can always find something in common. It's just whether you want to find something in common. Correct. Or not. Like I could have a complete full-on conversation with a knitter. For example, on a live stream, there was someone that was saying that they were actually knitting as they were watching us, talk about crochet and yarn. And it was a wonderful conversation because we can bond over yarn. It's the one thing that sort of combines all of these different art forms.
Correct, yeah, exactly.
So cheesy, oh my goodness. Okay, let's move on quickly before I get all cheesy, okay? So that's option 9. So, next page now. Let's talk about option 10, 11, and 12.
Is it all similar category together?
Kinda. So let's talk about option 10 and 11, which are really quick. In fact, we've already talked about option 11, which is use it as ribbons. Okay, yeah. If you have if you have a little bit more yarn, you can like crochet a strip, a thin, like maybe like 1/2 inch strip, and then that could be the ribbon itself. So when I said, use it as ribbons as birthday gifts or Christmas gifts, I really am talking about the ribbons that you stick on. Not really the rope that you tie around it. But, it could be either. Like, it could really be either. So that's point 11 that we already talked about earlier, kinda. And point number 10, talking about sticking on ribbons, you could make pom-poms.
Make pom-poms, yeah.
Or tassels, and stick it on to your ribbons or whatever. I don't do that. I'm not a pom-poms or tassels kind of girl.
But apparently a lot of people that was on our live sale, they love pom-poms.
You know, we on our live stream, those of you who joined us, I had like 5 different types of variegated and color changing yarn, and this yarn had pom-poms attached. Like it's part of the yarn, and everyone was like crazy over this pom-pom yarn.
Yeah,
and
like people were snatching over, like, you know.
yeah, and everyone was kind of saying, where are my pom-pom people? You know, I'm gonna make a vest, it's gonna be so cute. And we spent like the longest amount of time talking about pom-pom yarn, and that's really where the conversation got crazy.
Yeah, and so many times after we moved on, we had to go back pom-pom yarns
because
again,
someone was saying, wait, I'm thinking about that pom-pom yarn, can we go back to that?
Yeah.
So not really the same thing, but kind of related. So if you don't mind making pom-poms, like for crafts or whatever, you could stick them onto your bags, you know, you could put them on a keychain. There are so much more options you can do with it.
Yeah.
You know, put them on a beanie, put them on a jacket.
You don't really do pom-poms, but you do tassels, right?
I only do tassels every now and then when I'm making dream catchers.
Right.
But I don't do dream catchers. I haven't done dream catchers in a long time. So I don't do tassels anymore that much, even though they're kind of fun to do. But what am I going to do with a million tassels at the end of the day?
Throw it at a cat.
And actually, tassels take quite a huge amount of yarn, you know.
Oh, okay, really?
It's not as yarn saving as you think it is.
see.
It actually uses a lot more. And honestly, if I have a length of yarn that I can make a tassel with, I'd rather add it to my freeform
Yeah, that's true.
blanket or whatever, you know, make art with it. So anyway, that's point number 10 and 11. So moving on to option 12. And this is something I also do on my own, and that is to use yarn scraps as stitch markers.
Oh, yes, right.
And I'm sure I've talked about this if you've listened to any of our previous episodes. I'm quite sure I've talked about this like throughout.
Yeah.
I don't really remember which episode, but I talk about using yarn scraps as stitch markers, you know, whether you pull it through. So this could work for either knitting or crochet. So if it's crochet, you could just take your yarn, take a little length of yarn, pull it through your stitch and have it like tie a little knot and have it be there. If you are using stitch markers for knitting, you just cut a little piece, tie it into like a circle, like a little loop, and you could just slip that onto your knitting needles whenever you need a stitch marker. And in fact, when I knit, that's what I do, because I find that having like the regular stitch markers, because knitting creates such a thin piece of fabric, I find that it's too chunky, like it hangs off my yarn like weirdly. I don't know, I don't quite like it. So I tend to use, you know, yarn scraps, and I need only really small, like 2 inches is good enough for me. You could even just like 1 inch and tie into a little loop, and that works well. Other times you need like longer lengths of yarn, especially if you're holding together 2 pieces of fabric. You could just take a long piece of thread, put it on your darning needle, a long piece of yarn scrap, put it on your darning needle, and just quickly loop around the 2 panels that you're working on, just to hold it in place while you get your sizing correct, or if you want to adjust the way it falls on you, you could totally do that. So for me, I have certain kinds of yarn scraps, like the really good quality bamboo cotton ones, the ones that don't lint up, and I keep them aside. And if I'm making clothes, these are the scraps that I pull out specifically to hold different panels together, so that I have an actual, you know, idea of how it feels like. Because I find that when I use stitch markers, sometimes the stitch markers sort of stretches the work, or like the stitch markers fall out, so it's just not my favorite method.
When we are working with the clothes, I do agree that sometimes using the scrap yarns is easier to work with rather than the actual stitch markers.
Yeah, especially if you're putting together different panels, you know, like if you're making like a cardigan and you need to attach the sleeve to the bodice, like how are you going to do that with stitch markers?
Because you kind of have to put it on and off and on and off for the sizing, right?
Yeah. So I make sure my yarn is like a bright neon yellow. So I know that this part is not sewn in together, you know. So I use that as sort of like stitch markers. So scrap yarn could definitely be used as stitch markers. And I know lots of people who do that too. In fact, you watch any YouTube video and I'm sure you'll come across, you know, someone pulling just scrap yarn through their work as a stitch marker. And I think it's, you know, it keeps better. it's all yarn, so ultimately it's the same material. You know, if you want to fold it away and put it aside, you're not losing any stitch markers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because, you know, stitch markers, they're like bobby pins. You can buy like 2,000 of them and just you'll never be able to find any one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So stitch markers are like that for me. So I'd rather just, you know, cut a bit of yarn and use it as a stitch marker.
Smart.
Okay, so we are actually coming quite close to the end of my list. I only have option number 13 and option number 14. So option number 13 is a more unique one. It's if you know how to create your own yarn, you could chop up these little fluff of yarn, like chop up your yarn scraps into fluffs and put them in yarn batting and spin your own yarn so that you get your own speckled variegated yarn.
No way you can do that.
Yeah, and there are Etsy sellers online who would do that for you. You just have to send them your scraps. So they take yarn batting, they put it through the machine or they put it to the loom, they comb out the yarn and they put, you know, your yarn scraps. Obviously they chop it up into really, really tiny pieces and they spread it all over the yarn batting. And they constantly stretch and stretch and stretch, and then they twist it to make yarn, because
So, like,
that's how yarn is made.
Respinning like a brand new yarn.
Yeah, basically option 13 is to respin your own yarn. If you know how to do it, you can just do that, add them to wool bats, merino wool, whatever, spin them to create your own custom blend yarn.
So you actually need a machine, like a spinner machine
you
to
could
do that.
you could just use like a velvet sheet. There are like lots of YouTube videos telling you how to create your own yarn, but there is just an extra step where before you pull the wool to make, you know, to twist it into a long strand, you add that little chunky thing. You take like a comb, you comb it through to separate all the fibers, and you just keep adding them in layers until you get the kind of color scheme you want. And then you hook it onto the yarn spinner and you spin the yarn into long threads, and all that little yarn scraps that has been chopped up, I'm gonna call it yarn scrap fluff,
Okay.
all of that will be sort of evenly distributed to the yarn, and then at the end of it you get your own custom blend yarn.
Wow, that's interesting.
So just go on Etsy and type like recycled custom yarn or whatever, and see there are a few people who do it. The last I checked, there was like a few people who do it. And then you just send them. They tell you how much yarn they need for X amount of whatever.
Like the weight or okay.
You pay for the wool itself. You pay for the material itself, but you send them the scraps, and they redistribute that into new yarn.
Wow, that's another interesting way of using the scraps. Wow,
right? And if you talk about color coordinating, because I keep going back to that, if you are able to color coordinate your yarn scraps into jars, you know, you could have one that's like a red tone. You know, it's like speckled yarn, but like variegated. It's kind of so the final look looks a bit like our pom-pom yarn.
Okay.
The one that people were going crazy for over the live. It looks a little bit like that. So there are some areas that would be thicker, some areas that would stick out funny, but it's all like adds to the character of the yarn.
Okay.
Yeah, so go on Etsy if you want to do that. If you know how to do it yourself, then all the better.
Wow, I might actually just look that up.
Yeah. And wouldn't that be so exciting, because we've got so many, like so much yarn scraps, right? So this would be an option. In fact, this is something that I would probably want to try. Like, that's such a fun idea, right?
Right, yeah. I'm just thinking about it, yeah.
And we don't have anybody that does that in Singapore as far as I'm concerned.
Okay,
so maybe if you try it, Mel, you could start offering people that.
Yeah, I don't know, but it sounds interesting. I'll look it up.
And Mel is quite a technical person. Like, she likes to really like get her hands stuck into a craft and an art form. So I think this would be interesting for you, because it's got gadgets and tools and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and if it actually works, I can spin out new balls of yarn. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, and so like if you make like a cardigan, right, and you have leftover yarn, you could spin that into a new one with a different like wool color base. Yeah, and then I could make something for myself.
Right, yeah. This is it's like a different way of I think you're very, don't know which option, the one where you attach all the different yarns together.
Oh, right.
It's kind of similar, but you get like a mishmash of wow.
Yeah, so you don't need that much, probably like a quart size Ziploc baggie worth of yarn.
Oh, okay.
Because what they do is to just chop it up like really, really crazy and small and separate the fibers. So all you get really is the tinge of color in the yarn. It's so you don't actually see the actual fiber be broken down, but the colors all will be there.
Right, okay.
If we could do that, that would definitely be something that I personally want to try, because I love like speckled yarn, you know.
Yeah, I know, right. And we love working with variegated colors also. So
And it's so mesmerizing to see. There is a Instagram channel. I cannot for the life of me remember what it's called, but all she shows is her making yarn and using these speckled bits, you know. And even like 5-minute crafts. I've come across like a video from 5-minute crafts that show you how to make your own yarn that way by using like scraps and, you know, putting it in the yarn batting. So that's definitely something you can check out, I think. Okay, so moving on to our final point, our final option. And that is something that I've really kind of talked about throughout this whole episode, but I'm just gonna, you know, lump it all into one nice point. And option 14 is just make art. You know, like, art is so specific to every one of you. Like, you have your own definition of what art is, and so do I. And just make art, recreate art, but this time in yarn. So some options that we already talked about is if you are able to do like a tapestry piece of, you know, free-form tapestry, you can stretch that over canvas and hang it up in your house, and that's art. And every time you do it, it's something different. You could come up with a totally different look and feel and vibe, you know, all in all. And if you really like this style of crochet, it doesn't even have to be with scrap yarn. You could deliberately create freeform art with, you know, your own yarn and then hang it up as art. You know, other options is, if I mentioned the granny square hexagon where it's all tiled together like a honeycomb but in different colors, frame it up really nicely, you know, get a nice frame maker to do it for you, frame it up, and then you have some sort of art. Another option is if you make triangles, if you want to make lots of circles, if you want to make lots of squares, you know, you could tile them and make the colors stand out at different areas where you want to highlight certain things. You know, it's like, if you are familiar with the art painting concept called pointillism, it's basically creating lots of dots, right? So you're not actually using any paint strokes, it's just lots and lots of dots. Okay. And that dots creates a picture, almost like pixels. Right. So if you think about your art and your crochet little circles or squares or triangles in a pixel form, and you put them all together on one like huge piece of board, maybe like a 1 by 2 meter long boards, you know, you could create really pretty art. Yeah. And it's just up to you to decide how you want it to be and how big or small you want it to be. Another option is if you just have scrap yarn, you can just crochet them in rows. You know, it doesn't even have to be freeform or anything crazy. Just crochet them in rows, find a nice branch and hook it to the branch, add some tassels, right? Or pom-poms at the bottom, and hang it up in like a baby's room or like, it's just decor, you know. And it's a nice way for you to use up old scrap yarn that would have otherwise no purpose. Yeah, exactly. And home decor, guys, is not useless. You know, it sounds like it's just a decor thing, like there's no purpose to it, but the purpose is the aesthetic, right? It's the vibe it brings you. It's the intangible quality of having a really well decorated or well designed space, and you could entirely do all that at no extra cost because you're using yarn scraps. Yeah, and now that you're mentioning all these different options, it's honestly not that difficult. And I can say like, oh, this is something that's on my wall that I did it myself. Exactly. You know, like the weaving option that we talked about, when it's done, you could just hang it onto a nice little branch or a rope or a frame. You could tie it to a frame. Yeah. You don't even need to get it like properly framed up, you know. Weave some yarn through it, and just tie it, you know, have that rough and ready kind of look, you know, that rustic, you know, grammar chic kind of look. There's just so many options. There is, yeah. You know, so it really baffles me sometimes when, you know, people who take classes with me, they say, what am I going to do with this? I'm just going to throw it away. It's useless. It's only useless because you've decided it's useless. But if you keep it and you add them together, even if you do the basic, like tie them together in that big mishmash ball, that's still something you could do. So option 14, my last but I think the most important point for me on my list, is just make art with it. You know, whatever you define art to be, have it be that way, you know. I actually have 2 points that I want to add, like on my part that you didn't mention. One of it is something that we have done around the house before, and that is to mend stuff using small pieces of crochet pieces. Right.
Yeah. So I personally have like a t-shirt that like I have wear to death, but I can't wear it out because it's like there's like small little holes all around.
Yeah, or bleach stains on her black t-shirt.
Yeah. So I was mentioning to Inez, like, can you crochet me like small little, or actually
Like
now I can
dots.
crochet myself like small little, pieces like say circles or different shapes, and just patch it
Stick
up.
them onto your shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart.
Our little doggy Whiskey, he's got like a little turtle stuffed toy, but it's huge. It's a huge flat turtle stuffed toy that is big enough to be his bed. So he sleeps on it like a cushion, but when he first got it, he was like chewing on it, biting on it, and there was a little hole.
Yeah.
So I found a pastel pink yarn that sort of matches that
The
turtle.
turtle, yeah.
So we just kind of glued it on.
And it's so nice. It like adds that, I know, special texture look onto the whole thing. Yeah.
This reminds me of a picture I saw on Pinterest where somebody patched their broken jeans with white yarn. So they crocheted like a little white lace patch and they hand sewed it to the broken patch in their jeans.
That's so smart.
right? I think
Yeah.
that's something that you would,
I would totally do that.
yeah, in your black jeans,
Yeah.
you know.
Or even if my jeans is not holy, it might be something that I would just like,
Right,
put it on
add
top,
on.
like art, or
Yeah. Oh, and that also, thanks for bringing this up because this is reminding me of something else we did for you. You had a perfectly fine black t-shirt that is not broken or anything, but you wanted a pocket with it.
Yeah.
So I just crocheted a pocket to match one of the the purple top that I had. And you like that yarn too, so we just crochet a little pocket and sewed it onto Mel's black t-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, and so this is something you could do for the guys too, right? The guys in your life. Or if you're more androgynous and you don't want to wear a dress and you don't want to crochet yourself a blouse, you could totally crochet yourself like a pocket or like a pocket square.
Yeah, and
Oh, that's so cute.
right, so smart, right? Yeah, so that's another option that you I think just randomly use the
Yeah.
scrap yarns for.
Good point. Can't believe I missed this out. What's
Yeah.
your next point?
It's something that I read online. I don't know how practical or feasible it is actually,
Uh-huh.
but I've heard of some people who put the scrap yarn outside their house, and birds will come to use the yarns to build
Oh
nests.
my gosh, so cute.
Cute, right? Yeah.
It's so not. It's so it wouldn't work in Singapore where
Yeah, I
we
don't
are.
think so, but yeah.
But if you live somewhere where there are like a huge bird population,
Yeah.
or like close to the woods or whatever,
Yeah.
that is so cute.
Yeah, so I was reading about it, and the line came up, donate to the birds. And I was like, donate to the birds? I don't get it. So I read up a little bit more on it, and it says that birds actually come and pick out the scrap yarns
Right.
to use it for their nest.
For the nest, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my
so
god,
cute,
that is
yeah.
such a cute option. I would do like red or something bright. Oh no, that's
So you can
not.
see it.
Yeah, but that's not safe for them, right? You want to
Oh,
give
yeah.
them a color that
you
could.
kind of not want to attract predators, right?
Yeah. So, but that's such a cute option.
Cute, right? Yeah.
If we lived like anywhere in the United States that has that we
Yeah,
this
when
is
you-
option.
Yeah, we have parks nearby, or like, I don't know, you live in the woods or something. I think it's a nice option.
And this is kind of going full circle to the very beginning of this episode where you heard the sirens going by our window.
Yeah.
Singapore is just one big city. We don't have like a natural nature area. Like there's tall buildings everywhere you go. It's very rare you take a picture anywhere in Singapore and you have a wide open field. It's
Yeah.
very, very rare. All the really pretty like open field Instagram photos that the influencers take are all very strategically angled such that you don't see buildings. We have train systems running through the entire country and it's not underground, so it's above. I mean, there are some areas where it's underground, there are others that are kind of built on, I don't know, how would you say, like on top around buildings, right?
Yeah, like right above the streets.
Yeah, so because of that, it's very rare we have like nature and we have like wide open spaces. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as spending a day in nature in Singapore. You can forget about that. This is a concrete jungle.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Think like New York. There's really is the only place I could compare. It's billboard lights every night. You look in the sky in the middle of the night and the sky is bright. It's never really dark. We don't see stars here, which is really sad because
Yeah.
we're just in the middle of a city.
Yeah, it's really too bright. Yeah.
It's just it's like New York congested into like one country, or
Yeah.
expanded into one country. So that's not an option that we can
Yeah.
do, but it's a lovely thought.
Yeah,
right?
so for our people, our other listeners who
Are
are
overseas,
overseas,
yeah.
this is something you can think about.
I love that option. So I think we have dragged on long enough for this episode, really. But sustainability, like I've mentioned before, is such an important topic to me.
Yeah,
And I feel like it's important for me to list as much as I can think of right now. We can always come back and do a part 2, like I say, if there are other options that I've missed out. Or if you want to tell me other things that I've missed out, I would love to share it on our Instagram. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Crooked Crochet SG. And if you have any questions, you could join us there. And we're going to do more Instagram live, so you should definitely follow us on Instagram.
Yep, for sure, and come and talk to us.
So if you have any questions that you want to contribute to this podcast in our quick questions episode, you can always send us a voice message. You can iMessage that to us or WhatsApp text to us at +65 9127 2743. Or you can email us at crookedcrochetSG@gmail.com. All this information will be in the show notes below.
This has been such an interesting and eye-opening episode. There's
Right?
just so many more options that I could have even think of,
Yeah, when I was prepping for this episode, like the reason why I was so excited to present this episode was because I did this with minimum research, because it's just when I took my pen and I started writing, it's like everything poured out. All I intended to do was just put some bullet points, on my
Right.
notebook, and okay, I'll come back to it later. But well, once you got me going, I was like, okay, I'm gonna this and this and this point.
I was so sure off my head I could maybe only think of 4 to 5 points.
Yeah.
And when you told me you had more than 10 points, I was like, wow.
It's just whether people want to think about what they can
Yeah,
do with
that's
it.
true.
It's about thinking outside the yarn ball.
Not bad. That's
think
a good
outside the
pun.
yarn ball. So
Yeah.
and just find something creative to do with it.
And I'm sure that our listeners will probably have their own
Yes, exactly.
options that they use their scraps yarn for.
I'm serious, guys. Like, send me a message on Instagram or tag us with how you keep your yarn scraps, or like what you do with it.
Hashtag scrap busting. I've been
Really?
seeing that like going around when I was reading about this. Yeah.
So it's like stash busting, but like scrap busting.
Exactly, because you're kind of clearing away your scrap
scraps.
stash, right?
I am looking forward to my freeform blanket, which might now become a freeform art piece.
Exactly.
Stretch over canvas thing. A long name. But anyway, thank you guys for sticking with us through to this really long episode. It's been a while since we had like an hour-long episode. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for if you stuck with us to the end. We really appreciate you being here. We feel the love from you guys. Really, I say it a million times, and I will say it a million times more. I feel the love every time I get a message from you guys. It's just like it warms my heart. I run to Mel because I'm the one in charge of Instagram, so I'm the one that opens it and checks the messages, and Mel handles other aspects of the business. So when I see a message, it's like I drop literally everything.
She runs, guys. She really runs.
And I run to Mel and go, oh my goodness. And if Mel is not around that day, I would screenshot the message and send it to her, and
Yeah.
like if she doesn't reply immediately, I'm calling her.
Yeah, look at your message like right now.
So thank you guys again for being with us. I hope you have a good week coming up.
Yeah.
And with that, I will see you in the next episode. We'll let you go now here. Enjoy your weekend and see you next week.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.